Yeah, hi everyone. Jason here, Robot Lawn Mowers Australia. Today I'm going to give you a quick update on the Sunseeker X3 or the MoeBot X3. I've been using it for around about a month now on the property. I think it's been about 3.5, 4 weeks now. I've been using it as my daily driver. Every single day has been mowing the lawn. I'm going to give you a quick update on how I found the machine, what the cutting results are like, issues and errors that I've seen along the way, impressive features or the features that surprised me a bit more about this mower, and things that I've realised after my initial setup. And then I'll just go through a bit of a wrap up and let you know what I actually think about the robot after I've been using it for a month. So let's get into it and I'll show you some cutting results. Okay, so let's start here on my front lawn, which is where I've got the charging station. The cut result of the actual robot over time, over the last few weeks and mowing every day, is absolutely spot on. It's perfect actually. You don't see any lines in the grass, so I've got this robot set to, I think it's traceless, I think it calls it in the actual app, where the robot changes its angle every time it mows. So every day it comes out and mows the lawn and mows on a different angle every day. And look, as you can see there, really honestly, there's not a blade out of place. Now I've purposely not trimmed any of my edges in 4 weeks as well, so we can get a clear delineation of exactly how close to the edges it got. So you can see down the side here, probably around about 10 to 12 centimeters of uncut grass down that side there. This edge here is actually a little bit more. Had a few issues just trying to get the robot really close to this edge without it jumping up onto the garden edge too much, but still around about that 12 to 15 centimeters of uncut grass. Over here it was able to straddle the grass, no problems at all. And then along this edge here, again, around about that 10 to 12 centimeters of uncut grass all the way along the edge. In the middle here, where we had the tree stump now, there's a no-go zone around this tree stump, and when I took the last video, there was no edge mowing on no-go zones. So there's been an update since then, at least I believe it's due to an update, and it now actually does a edge cut around the no-go zones every time it does the border cut. So it's got really quite close to that tree stump. Really hasn't done a bad job at all. Moving along the side here, this edge here is notorious for us. For here, the robots seem to miss about 20 centimeters along this edge. It seems to always happen with all robots. Now, it's got a little bit something to do with that retaining wall to the side there. It keeps it a little bit further away through the charging station, back down the other side. So moving on to the next lawn, out into the nature strip. So this edge here, we're able to keep it straddling over the edge there, so it got all the edges across there. This edge here, it actually hugs really tight to this fence line along here, so it actually got really close to that, probably just less than 10 centimeters or on 10 centimeters along there. Same along this edge here, around about that 10 centimeters. This edge, we were able to get it to straddle it over the edge, even though it's got that sort of 5 centimeter drop off on the edge there. It was able to do all of that. Missed about 10 centimeters on the front curb there, and then back on that side there. And the overall finish of this lawn, again, is fantastic. There's still a lot of dandelions sticking up in this lawn, so you can't really see. Doesn't really look fantastic, this lawn, but it is mowed really well. Onto the little middle section here, which is notoriously difficult for most robots to actually get to achieve, and that's mostly because of the narrow spaces and the slope. But you can see it was able to get all the way to the edges, left a little bit on the front edge just down here, and a little bit around this pole here, where it just comes around. Again, it's about 10 to 12 centimeters around that pole there. Wasn't able to get that last little bit on the side there because the drop off there is it's about 10 centimeters drop off onto the driveway. All the edges through here, down the side here, going down to where we've got really low GNSS signal, still able to keep within 10 to 12 centimeters of the edge there. So it really has done a really great job. All the way around the same thing, all the way down here. It really has mowed down here perfectly fine, which is something to be said for robots that are operating off satellite vision, because there's very little GNSS here. This section here, it has to go straight up through there because it can't handle the slope any further than that little spot there. So it does miss all that section in the side there, and then back up to the top and around the top here, it does perfectly fine. So we'll wander off out into the backyard and have a quick look. So with the robot traveling down through this side yard here, it really had no troubles. It never got stuck at all. We'll talk about some of the issues I had just with the gate if it's been closed. So coming down here, it had no issues the whole time. All the way through here, we've actually moved the trampoline a bit here, so it's actually made it even a bit more difficult for everything. So we've come through the side here. The robot itself actually travels down the side here. No issues at all when it came through. and then into the backyard again. Again, very low GNSS signal in this backyard, but it's done a perfectly good job of mowing the lawn. It really hasn't got a blade out of place. We had, again, it's only left about 5 centimetres on its edge here because it was able to bring the wheels of the machine up onto the curb here, and around the side here, much the same, about 5 to 6 centimetres. We're able to get it to straddle this side here without any problems, so there's no uncut grass along that edge. About 5 or 6 on that side edge there, because again it can straddle over the little mowing strip there, and then down the side here, left about 10 centimetres, but you can't actually see it because the grass doesn't grow very much there. So that's generally a wrap up of the quality of finish. It really has done a really fantastic job of actually mowing the grass. Okay, so moving on to just some of the issues and errors that I've incurred and encountered while using this for the last month or so, which has been very few. I'll be honest, when it comes to setting up robots and just using them straight off the bat, this has probably been one of the easiest ones to get going and set up and making it reliable to mow every single day without fault. The first thing I noted was that on the little slope I've got in the front yard, where it's just that little steepest bit where it gets to about 25%, maybe close to 30%. When it's heading down the slope, it actually lifts the back wheel, just the back of the robot lifts a little bit, and the lift sensors go off on the rear wheels, and that actually stops the blade from running. Then the robot continues to travel forward for a little bit, and then it starts its blade and continues on. It doesn't stop the robot from working, but it leaves a little bit of extra uncut grass on that space there, because it never ever does the edge mow in that little spot there, because the blade always stops when it heads down that hill every single time. Then just a little bit further down the hill, where it goes around this corner, the back of the robot gets caught on the step, and that's simply because I've mapped it too close to the edge, so I could easily just move that away, but I'm just sort of pointing out what can happen. And the same thing again, when the back of the robot slid up on top of the step, it lifts the back wheel off the ground, blade stops working, robot moves forward, then starts its blade again, but it leaves a little bit of uncut grass where it moves on. The other issue I had was in about 3 locations, there was exactly 3 locations. One, I'll show you a picture here, just on the garden edge, it's on the front lawn. There was another one on the curb at the front in the neighbour's property where I mow the neighbour's nature strip as well, and another spot in the backyard where the robot jumped the curb. In the same 3 spots, it jumped a couple of times in each one until I had to go back and then just modify the map to come in a bit further in, and it was perfectly fine after that. So what I found as a whole, and this is generally just watching the machine day in, day out, was that these robots, or the Sunseeker robot, generally, its borders are not quite as rock solid as other machines. And when I say that, it's not a bad thing, it's actually relatively, it's a good thing to tell you the truth. But this one mows around about sort of 2 centimetres further out from where you map it, whereas most other robots, when you map them, they mow about 2 centimetres inside where you map them. So this one sort of just pushes the boundaries a little bit further. So when you do map really close to the boundaries, you will find that on occasion it'll jump over the boundary or into a garden edge, what it might be. So you just got to be a little bit more, basically sort of give it a little bit more space around some of those edges. If it's going to get stuck in a garden or something, bring it in sort of, I'd usually map 5 centimetres from the edge, but with this one I'd sort of map about 7 centimetres from the edge, just to make sure that when it does decide to go a couple of centimetres further out, it doesn't get itself into trouble. But after I moved those edges in, it wasn't an issue at all. It was perfectly fine. The other issue we incurred was the gate between the front yard and backyard. So if the robot was programmed to go at the back, which it shouldn't be, this is my fault for programming it to go at the back when the gate's not open. But when it does hit the gate, it actually hits the gate at this front edge just here. So it doesn't hit the front bumper, it hits up higher, and therefore the robot doesn't really sense that it's actually hit anything, and then it actually just travels and it spins the wheels. It actually even starts to wear the wheels down on the pavers there, so it actually starts chopping the tyre off the robot. It didn't return back to base after that, so it would actually sit there and do that for about 5 more minutes, and then it will go into error and just sit there. So a lot of other robots will actually just, if they can't get somewhere, they'll turn around and just go back to the charging station. This one just persisted and persisted and persisted, which again is sort of a good thing. And then once it couldn't get there, it just threw an error. So that's really it for the issues that we occur. So it really has been pretty damn reliable. The one thing I will touch on, and I touched on this back in the setup video as well, is that because the charging station is the reference point, if anything happens to the GNS signal of this robot and the GNS signal gets inaccurate, the only way it can fix itself is to get back to the charging station, sit on the charger. As soon as it touches the charging station, it then resets all the positioning again and goes again. When it's out in the field mowing and it goes into a poor GNSS signal, it can take some time for it to actually get itself calibrated back again. And when it does that, generally what happens is it tends to miss bits. So it's mowing in nice perfect lines, but then it just might leave a little strip, which we pointed out in the setup video as well. It's not really an issue because it doesn't really matter if it misses a little bit on each individual mow, as long as it's mowing often enough and it's changing angles, then it did a perfectly great job. In fact, again, I think the cutting results of this machine when it's mowing every day is just as good, if not better, than just about every other machine on the market in this sort of size bracket. So it did a really good job, but it does miss bits. And that's, like I said, it's because the GNS receiver in here, it gets uncalibrated as it's mowing, and then it needs to get back on the docking station before it calibrates again. And in that period of time, that's when it tends to push the boundaries that little bit further, a few centimeters more than it used to. So what I did find was that when I mowed the backyard, because it had to go down the side of the house and lose its GNSS signal on the way getting there, is that I would find that if it mowed all the lawns and then went out there without going back to the charging station, I could find the robot would actually mow 2-3 centimeters outside of its boundary. But if it went to the charger first before it went out the back, then it was pretty well perfect every single time. Okay, so standout features, positive or negative, of the MoeBot X3 or the Sunseeker X3. So the first real, honestly, the app is so simple in this machine. It's really, really easy. You don't need to sort of understand much about the robots and how they work. You just sort of get in there and get it done. It's simple, straightforward. You don't really get confused over the app. And there's a copy schedule feature, which is not in a lot of robots, but you can set the first schedule for, say it's Monday. You set it for Monday, you can press and hold the Monday, and you can copy it to every day of the week, which is fantastic. So the other positive feature, and look, it's more a capability than a feature, but for a two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive machine, it handles step-ups, from the pavers onto your grass, where the grass is taller than the pavers or the driveway, whatever it might be. It handles it like a champ. It does better than any other two-wheel drive robot I've pretty much seen. And typically front-wheel drive robots are not that great at that. They're really not. They're generally terrible at it because they get to it and they generally spin their wheels when they're trying to step up onto things. This guy does not spin his wheels when he does it. In fact, he does fantastic. As much as some of the step-ups don't look like much, they're usually around about sort of that 5 centimeter mark, and most two-wheel drive robots will really struggle with that, and this guy has no troubles at all, and is probably the key reason why this machine doesn't get stuck on my yard, because that's generally the biggest issue I have with two-wheel drive robots on my entire yard. So a couple of negatives we found out. So there's a lovely little LED light right in the middle of this camera here, but there's no function to allow this robot to work at night. Now, I didn't realize that when I was setting it up, but you cannot use the Sunseeker X3 at night. That LED light is not programmed to come on. There is no function or feature in the app at this point in time to turn that on. So as soon as it gets dark, this robot stops working. So it chops out 12 hours of your ability to mow the grass out every single day. Because of its mow rate per hour, it still manages it probably exceeds what it's rated at anyway. But yeah, you can only mow during the day. On the flip side of that, the runtime of the battery is so much better than what the specs say it is. I honestly can get up to 3 hours runtime out of this machine, and typically, I think I've got a screenshot there I can show you. I think it takes 2 hours and 45 minutes to mow all the lawns that I have here, and it was doing that and still returning back to the charger with 40% charge or 35% charge. Its runtime is fantastic. Obviously on my yard, I've got it perfectly under control and it's mowing every single day, so it's not cutting much, it's just clipping it all the time. If you're going to go and cut long grass, I'm sure that runtime will drop to its rated hour and a half very quickly if you're cutting a fair bit of grass. But when it's doing what it's designed to do and just clip the top off every single day, getting 2 hours out of this is not a problem. And like I said, I was able to achieve 3 hours. It really is, it runs significantly longer than what it's rated to run for. So my final thoughts, I suppose, on this machine. So this is other than a capacity review video that we'll take, this essentially is the last video I'll take on this for its debut anyway, and maybe take some further videos further down the track. But my thoughts on this is, for a two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive machine, it's really, really good. I dare say it's sort of one of the better two-wheel drive machines in this price bracket. It's one of the better two-wheel drive machines on the market. It does a great job. It mows fantastically. The finish cut quality really, really is good. And I had no issues with it traversing around a place, working in low GNSS signals. It's a good machine. It works really, really well. Even though with its missing little bits and pieces here and there on every single mow, and it does miss bits on every single mow, it absolutely 100% does do that. But as long as you're mowing every day on different angles, it ends up leaving a cut quality that's actually quite similar to the old wired machines, which really have over the years always left a far more superior cut quality, because they just randomly just go all over the place and they cut every single section of grass, you know, multiple times every time it goes out and mows. But they're incredibly inefficient at actually getting the entire area done. So these guys bring back the efficiency so you can actually get it done, you know, in a reasonable time frame. And as long as you're mowing on different angles, it leaves almost the best cut finish I've seen. So yes, once you've used this machine for a couple of weeks, maybe a week or two, and you've sort of ironed out any bugs and things that you might have, whether it's jumping over the borders where it might be, and you've moved those borders in, this machine can be incredibly reliable. And look, like I said, for a two-wheel drive machine in my front yard, this has probably been just about the most reliable machine I've probably put in my front yard, because I've never really been able to put a two-wheel drive machine in the front yard and not have it getting stuck on step-ups and things like that, and slopes and things slipping around the place. I generally always find the two-wheel drive machines do get stuck fairly frequently, usually sort of once or twice a week on my property. This guy, once I stopped it from going over those couple of border issues that I had, I don't think I did have one issue there where it was actually down behind me between the carports here behind me, where there's almost no GNSS signal. It did get lost in there once in 4 weeks worth of work. So honestly, I think it's pretty reliable. It can be set up to be one of those machines that you can actually leave to work on its own, and you should only have to interact with it, you know, maybe once a fortnight or something. It might do something weird. So, but as far as reliability goes, it's pretty damn good. So that's it for this video, guys. As always, if you have any questions at all on the MoeBot X7 or the Sunseeker X3, the X7 as well if you like, but anyway, any other robot on the market, drop some comments below. More than happy to answer questions in the comments. If you're in Australia and you need advice, drop us an email at sales@robotlawnmowers.com.au. Check out our website, www.robotlawnmowers.com.au, for all the information we've got on there, and check out our daily interactions and socials on TikTok, Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.